Okay, so in this episode, we are going to be talking about overcoming procrastination. This is a big topic, as you might know, because procrastination is something that so many of us want to overcome, to deal with, to like finally be rid of. And in this episode, I'm going to talk about how to understand the roots of procrastination. We're going to talk about some mindful techniques to combat that procrastination, building habits to stay motivated, and then coming back to this practice when you've fallen off, and the importance of that. Okay, so that's what we've got for you this episode. Let's dive in. So, procrastination. Before we get to the roots of it, I'd love for you just to reflect. Like, is this something that's present for you? Are you someone who struggles with procrastination? Another way to think about procrastination is avoidance. We're avoiding something that we're feeling something about because procrastination just feels like, it's this thing that I am. I'm a procrastinator. I suck. But actually, what we're doing is we're avoiding something that has some fear, some resistance, something difficult for us. Maybe it makes us feel overwhelmed. Maybe we're afraid that we're going to fail or look bad or just do a terrible job at it. And so it has some kind of fear, some kind of uncertainty, some kind of difficult emotion in it. And so we avoid it. And I think that's actually a useful thing to think about rather than procrastination, which is just a judgmental word. Avoidance can also be a judgmental word, but actually it's it's a human thing to avoid things that we're afraid of, right? We all do that. And so maybe we can have a little bit of compassion as we think about this thing that we all do. And so if we talk about the roots of procrastination, what we're really looking at is what are we avoiding? If the thing that we are procrastinating on is something that we want to avoid, then why? What is it that we're avoiding? And I've already kind of touched on it, but what we would say is that there is some kind of bad outcome that we're afraid of, that we think is dangerous, right? So I'll give you a few examples so you can see what I'm talking about. So the roots of procrastination is the roots of our avoidance. Okay, so one example is, let's say I have, um, a big paper to write, right? So I need to write a paper, and it's big. It makes a big impact on my grades. If let's say I'm in college, right, university, so I have this big paper to write. I've been putting it off for weeks, but it makes a big impact on my grade, and I don't know if I'm going to do a good job at it. And so if I knew I was going to do a really good job, then I'd be like, oh yeah, no problem. I'm going to just sit down and crank it out. But I'm not sure if I'm actually going to do a good job. And so I'm going to feel some uncertainty about that. Like, ooh, am I going to do a good job? So that's one thing is I don't know how I'm going to do with it. I don't know maybe how to do it exactly. Like I don't have all the steps written out. It's not really clear to me. Maybe I don't have the skills or the knowledge. There's some kind of uncertainty of how to actually, do a good job with this. So that's one really important element is there has to be uncertainty. If this is something that we know how to do, like if I'm just gonna like wash my coffee cup out, well, I know how to do that. I've done it thousands of times, and so I can do that with a lot of confidence. Like, of course, there's still uncertainty there. Like maybe I'll crack the cup, but I'm not too worried about it because I've done it so many times before that I have a lot of trust in myself and a lot of confidence and a lot of certainty. This is, an easy task that I know how to do. And I'm pretty sure how it's going to turn out. A clean cup that's wet. Okay, so there has to be uncertainty there. And this, all the tasks that we avoid have some kind of uncertainty. The second thing, though, is that it has to have uncertainty, and the uncertain outcome, one of the uncertain outcomes has to be something that really like, yeah, that we identify with, that has some kind of impact on our ego and our identity. And I say ego without any judgment. We all have a way we view ourselves that we want to be viewed as. to ourselves or others, and we're worried that this is going to impact that. So for this, in the example of this paper, not only do I not know how the paper is going to turn out, am I going to do a good job or not? I don't know how to do it, so there's uncertainty there. But failing at this paper is going to impact my identity in some way. So maybe others are going to see that I'm not good at this. Maybe it's a subject that I want to be seen as good at. Let's say it was write English, right? I want to be like seen as good at English for some reason. And so I'm worried that this is going to turn out in a bad way, and that's going to impact how others see me with regards to this subject. Um, and so, I will have not only uncertainty, but I'm going to have fear of the way it's going to turn out. That was one example, but we have countless examples. If I do this um, and it turns out badly, I'm worried people are going to see me as a parent badly, right? I'm going to do bad as a parent, and people are going to think, oh, he's not a good parent, or she's not a good parent. They might not think I'm smart, and I want people to think that I'm smart. They might not think I'm competent, and I want them to think I'm competent. They might not think I'm a hard worker. They might think I'm lazy, and I want them to think I'm a hard worker. So we have a way we want people to see us, and then one of the uncertain outcomes will negatively impact that. And it's not just how others might see us, it's how we see ourselves. If I want to think of myself as smart or competent or a hard worker or whatever it is, strong and capable, not needing others, independent and self-sufficient, and if I somehow fail at that, then I might see myself in a bad way, and I don't want to. None of us want to see ourselves in a bad way. So this is the root of procrastination and avoidance, is that we are facing a task that has some uncertainty, some degree of it, probably a pretty decent degree, and it will impact our identity in some way. We will be seen as something bad. And I use the example of a paper, but actually sometimes it's just like responding to a message or an email. It might be a small thing like that, like responding to this email takes me 2 minutes, but I don't know how the other person is going to perceive my email response. And in fact, they might then see through the way that I'm trying to perform. They might see through the way I'm pretending to be and see that I'm actually not as smart, capable, hardworking, strong as I'm trying to project. So it's not that we're all just pretending and we're not smart or capable. It's that we are actually trying to prove something to others or to ourselves or both. I'm trying to prove my smartness, trying to prove how capable I am or knowledgeable or whatever. And by trying to prove these things, we risk failing at it and being shown to be otherwise. Again, to others or ourselves or both. That is the root of procrastination and avoidance. It's in every single thing that we do. And so understanding that really is the key to how to work with this. Because what people try and do is they try and just tackle the action. You're not, uh, doing your work. Here's how you make yourself do your work. Well, that approach is basically coercion. When someone's like, I just need to get freaking focused and disciplined and get on top of things and follow this new system or technique or plan, just like, I just need to do it. Like, this is um, really the unspoken thing is all I need to do is coerce myself into it. I need to shame myself. I need to beat myself into it. I need to force myself. I need to be freaking disciplined. Every day I'm going to wake up and shower in cold water and, drink something really terrible tasting and do this really hard meditation and do this hard workout. And I'm going to be super disciplined. And then my whole life is going to be disciplined and I'm not going to have any procrastination. That's I'm being a little bit extreme and facetious with those examples, but actually those are not that extreme for some people. That's exactly the approach that people are taking. And the idea there is if I can get really hard on myself, force myself to do everything, then I won't procrastinate anymore. And to some degree, that works. We can force ourselves to do a lot of stuff until it doesn't. We can't force ourselves to do everything all the time forever. Um, there's only so much forcing that we can do, and eventually we're just going to stop. You might already be in that place where you've stopped forcing yourself and you're just like, tired of forcing myself. We don't say it that way, but that is actually what we're feeling. And so we're just like, having a really hard week or month or year because you just can't force yourself forever, right? And trust me, I've done a lot of forcing. I've forced myself to run several marathons and a 50-mile ultra marathon. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying I know what forcing is like. It's painful, it's hard, it's exhausting, and eventually you reach the limit of it. When people run marathons or ultra marathons, they rarely reach the limit of what their body can do. They reach the limit of what their mind can force them to do, how much pain their mind is willing to force them to take. And so, if you just stop running, you're trying to run an ultra marathon, you stop running, it's not because your body can't do it. Rarely. I mean, once in a while we're like actually injured, but most of the time your body could probably go another, twice as long as you've actually gone. But your mind can't force you to go through that much more pain. So there's a limit. So if forcing ourselves is of limited use, again, I'm not saying as of no use. I think we could actually use that to some degree. Then what are some other ways to tackle this? So we're going to talk about some mindful techniques. Um, and the first one is just to recognize, oh, I have some resistance. I'm avoiding right now. We don't want to recognize we're doing it. We try and tell ourselves a bunch of stories or rationalize things and say, "Oh, it's totally fine. Like I can do it tomorrow." There's truth to it, of course. Every lie that we tell ourselves has to have some truth so that it can seem legitimate. But actually, it's a lie. We're lying to ourselves. Yeah, of course you can do it later. Of course you can do it tomorrow. Of course you're busy. Of course, all of these things. But what you're really doing is you're saying that this is, I'm not actually having resistance here. It's just okay to do it later. But let's be like really honest with ourselves. You are feeling some fear, some uncertainty, some resistance, and some avoidance. So be really honest with yourself. This is not about beating yourself up. This is not about guilting yourself or shaming yourself or making yourself wrong for what you're doing or not doing. It's just being honest. I'm feeling some fear here. I'm feeling some resistance. I'm avoiding. So if you could just do that, you already are ahead of the game. And this, when I talk about mindfulness, this is just bringing awareness to what's actually happening. So if you can recognize that now you can actually do something else. So recognize, I have resistance, I have fear, I have avoidance right now. In this moment, I am actually avoiding something. Okay, great. So now you've done that. What else? And by the way, you can practice that all day long and start to notice like, oh, there's 4 things I'm avoiding today. Oh, look at my email inbox. It's full of things I'm avoiding. My task list full of things I'm avoiding, right? I'm feeling fear and uncertainty about all of those things. You don't even have to identify what the fear is. It's just like recognize that it's there. It's just fear. Okay, so what can we do after that? Well, first of all, we could pause for a moment, and it's like a little meditation where you just notice what does that fear, resistance, avoidance feel like in my body? And if you notice it's a tightness and sometimes a tenderness. If we just notice that it's a tightness and a tenderness, tight, like your body kind of clenches against the fear. And like, I don't want to do it. Ah. And then it's a tenderness underneath that. It's like, ooh, I'm not sure if I can actually do this or if I'm going to be seen to be a good person or not. So we can just be present to that. And if you can just, breathe and even give it a little bit of kindness or friendliness. Again, you can imagine that this is like a little kid who's scared and you just want to give them a warm, loving hug. And that's all they need. It's just a warm, loving hug. We're doing that too with this feeling in our body. So you can do that just for a moment. And then next, once you've done that, just turn towards the task and try and see like what is the thing that's the opportunity here. Like what's the possibility of doing this email or this task that you really want? Like why is this even on your list? What would be amazing about this? Because we look at the uncertainty and we look at the negative outcome of like how this is going to make me look like I'm weak or a lazy or stupid or whatever. And that there's truth to that, but that's, actually not as consequential as the possibility of what could happen. I could actually not just prove myself strong, smart, capable, whatever, but I could actually help someone here. And that's worth risking my identity. In fact, if I just embrace that sometimes I am lazy, sometimes I am stupid, like I'm not always smart, right? Then I can embrace that there's actually multitudes in me. There's actually a wide range of possibilities in me. Sometimes it is weak. Like I can be weak, you know? Just admit sometimes I am all of those things. And sometimes I'm strong and smart and capable and all of that. And so I'm all of that, and sometimes I might not be the way that I want to be, but that's part of who I am. So we can just admit that, yeah, we contain all of that and be present to the possibility. So these are some mindfulness techniques that we can use to actually deal with those avoidance and fears and uncertainties. But there can be some techniques that also help. So these are the habits that I would encourage you to have. The first habit that I have is when I am resisting something, I recognize it, and then I will can make a commitment to someone else. I will make a declaration. I make a commitment that I will finish this by this date. Maybe by the end of today, maybe by the end of tomorrow, end of this week, you know, by the 15th, whatever it would be. And so I make a commitment to someone else. And then I hold myself accountable. So I would highly recommend that you hold yourself accountable. Make a commitment and hold yourself accountable. Even if you fail, just own up to it. And if you do that, you hold yourself accountable, make commitments, you will start to move through your resistance. It's not that you're not going to have resistance, but you'll move through it. Um, and then another technique I use are focus sessions. So actually getting on a Zoom call with someone for an hour, let's say, one or more people, and saying, here's what I'm going to do this hour, and I'm going to focus on that for this hour, maybe one or two things. And then that person tells me what they're going to do. We go on mute. We we work for the rest of the hour, or half an hour if that's all you have, or an hour and a half if you want to do that, or 2 hours. But then by the end of the session, we get back off mute. We go and talk to each other, and we check out and say how it went. So this is a focus session. I have this in my Fearless Living Academy. We have focus sessions practically, or more than one every day. So, if you want a built-in focus session, you can come and do this with us. I lead one every Thursday that you can join me in, but there's other people who lead other ones, and I sometimes join those as well. So focus sessions would be another habit or technique you can use. Um, I also do daily accountability. So I'll make a short list of what I want to do each day, and at the end of the day, I tell my team or my coach or someone who I've committed to how that went. So that would be another thing that really helps. The final thing that I do is if I'm really resisting something, I have this big resistance, I cut the thing into a really small chunk. So maybe just 5 or 10 minutes of it. And I say, all I have to do is do 5 minutes. And then I can take a break and reward myself with like whatever it is that I wanted to do, a YouTube video or whatever, right? And so I do 5 minutes, I do the YouTube video. That makes the next 5 minutes easier to start on because I've just done 5 minutes. And through this, I make the resistance go down and it becomes easier and easier to do it. So I do 5 minutes, maybe I do 5 or 10 minutes the next time, maybe I do 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and all of a sudden I'm moving through my resistance. Okay, the last thing I want to share is about coming back when you've fallen off. And so if you are someone who, um, is usually like really good at this and you're like really moving through all of your resistance and you're being productive, and then you fall off and you have a really bad week. Let's say you just have a really bad week, which, I did last week actually. Last week was unproductive. I had a lot of resistance for whatever reason, right? Maybe there's a lot going on in my life. And so when that happens, you recognize it, and then you can start again. So all you want to do is just like start with a blank slate. Forget about last week. Maybe there's stuff about last week that you need to process, or maybe there's some learning from that. Great. But then start fresh, like a day one kind of mindset. So it's just like, I am starting today. And from this, what you want to do is just say, okay, what would I like to do this week? If this week could be amazing. And then what do I want to do today to make a good start towards that? Really get off to a good start. And then again, use the 5 minute technique, which is I'm going to do 5 minutes, take a break, 5 minutes, take a break. And then eventually you're moving through your day really well. Another thing that helps with that is to talk to other people about it. Just let them know, like, last week was hard for me. I was facing a lot of resistance, doing a lot of avoiding. And this week, I'm really going to try and start again. Let yourself have that kind of like, almost like New Year's resolution energy. It's like, I'm starting again and I'm feeling excited about it. If you can let yourself have that, it becomes easier and easier to get started. And that's a skill here that you can practice. It's just keep coming back when you've fallen off. It's not that you should have kept going. It's that, I get to practice coming back. Okay, that's what I've got for you today. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know. Podcast@zenhabits.net if you're listening to the audio version of this, or put into the comments on YouTube if you're watching the video version of this. Great being here with all of you. I will talk to you later.